Hi LinkedIn, it's Ali G. This video is about PLCs and to see how long I can talk about PLCs before I cut myself off. So, first of all, what does it stand for? PLC stands for Programmable Logic Controller. So the programmable part means that we can program it ourselves. It's customizable, right? And so every application you can, that's kind of what's neat about it is, you can buy a PLC for a process and have someone who knows how to come in and program it for your process or your machine. That's what my job is, or part of my job. My job is more complicated than that, but that is identifying part of my job is being able to write they call it from scratch, write a PLC code from scratch, which really just means a code in its entirety that can function out there in whatever platform you use. And there are different platforms, and kind of to go explain that part a little bit more, there are different PLC manufacturers, and how this typically goes, even though this is changing, is that a manufacturer of the hardware will also make the software. And when I say software, like, why do you care? Well, you have to use software to do the programmable part. So if you're going to program a PLC, that's why they call them PLC programmers, you need this other software made by the same manufacturer of your PLC to basically write code, and then that PLC will be able to run that code, compile and run that. And you can use, that software on your computer or laptop or whatever you're using, write code, and then load it or upload it, I'll tell you what that means in a second, to and from a PLC. And it's an entire job to, write custom PLC code for processes or machines as they come up. And, these manufacturers are always selling controllers to either new machines or upgraded, machines. Because there's a lot of actually really old PLCs out there that are still running, and they're not made anymore. And eventually, with how obsolete they are, they do get upgraded to either a different vendor or the same, the newest version of the same vendor. And when I say vendor, I mean OEM, or the manufacturer of the hardware slash software used to program the PLCs. And, there's, what language is it programmed in? It depends, but they all do the same thing. There's not like, it's not like there's missing functions in one or the other. I mean, I guess that's not entirely true, but for the most part, if you're not doing super complex stuff, you could use function blocks, or you can use structured text, or you can use ladder logic, or you can use, what is the other one? State logic, whatever. So there's a lot of ways to program PLCs, but the older way, or the traditional way, is with ladder logic, because it made sense to write the code in the same way like people in maintenance could read relay logic. So they wrote code in the same structure that you read relay logic. So that's what ladder is just relay logic in the computer. So it's actually, I think, really easy to read because I don't have a programming background. I mean, I do, but I don't. Like, my education is chemical engineering, and if you have a non-electrical engineering, non-computer engineering, non-software engineering background, then ladder logic is super easy to understand. And if you want to write in structured text, go for it. I don't like to. What else about PLCs? So there's one, actually, there's two in my screen. So there's one, the one over here is Allen Bradley, which is the largest manufacturer of PLCs in North America. And then on this side, because I don't know, I'm gonna say the directions wrong. So on this side is the Siemens PLC, and they are the largest PLC manufacturers in the world. And they do compete in the United States, but there is a lot more Rockwell. You will see a lot more Rockwell. Most of my experience is with Rockwell just because that's what's used in North America. It's programmed now, the new ones are programmed with Studio 5000. They used to be programmed, well, the lines before now. So they have two different categories, I guess, of PLCs. I guess every kind of OEM does the same thing where they have their line for less I/O to do like machinery, and they kind of just sell it more towards machinery, but you can use it for a small process. And so that's called compact logics. That's what Allen Bradley sells their line of machinery PLCs. And then their like process PLCs, which can be pretty big in terms of, they do have more I/O capability, and those are called control logics. And that's actually inside of a chassis, so you can, I think the biggest chassis is like 17 slot chassis, and then you have to get another chassis and connect them together and power them. But it's a chassis style PLC called control logics. And on the Siemens side, they have the same thing where they have a line for machinery that's less I/O typically, and that's the S7 1200, and then the S7 1500 is the kind of equivalent to control logics, and the software is called TIA Portal. TIA is totally integrated automation, I think. And Studio 5000 is the Allen Bradley software. When I say software, I'm talking about the development software so that you can write PLC code to load onto the PLC. Because once the PLC gets this code, in theory, it just runs it forever. But forever is not really forever. It runs it until it can't anymore. So either the processor fails, or the battery dies, or the processor fails and it loses its program. There's eventually it dies, but there are some PLCs, and very impressively, there are some PLCs out there that have been out there for a long time, for some of your lives, like the younger ones. PLCs. Yeah. I think that's all I'm gonna do on PLCs. 8 minutes is okay. Yeah. Thanks, LinkedIn.